Hello, good morning to everyone who's just joining us. I know that there are people coming into this meeting all the time, so we look forward to welcoming everybody. I have quite a few people joining us this morning at this webinar. Just give a little while for more people to join, and then we will get started. Okay, well, I think we have pretty much everybody here. Of course, more people may join us during the course of the webinar, which of course will be very welcome. So thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Peter Jordan. I'm Head of Insights with TOPOSOPHY, and we're very proud to be hosting this webinar alongside, of course, with our friends and partners, HOTREC, which is the Umbrella Association of Hotels, Restaurants, Bars and Cafes in Europe, and of course, TOPOSOPHY. Here we are a very well-known placemaking and marketing agency. Wherever you're watching and listening from today, we're very glad that you could be with us, and we do hope that you find this webinar very useful. To give you an idea of the structure that we're going to follow this morning, we're shortly going to be joined by our friend Marine Thizon from HOTREC, who is going to give a welcome, some opening remarks. And following that, I'm going to give a presentation of around 20 minutes to set the scene, to talk about these 10 trends that we've identified in 10 digital trends in the food and restaurant service industry. And then, of course, we're going to be joined by a panel discussion that is going to talk through some of our questions and some of your questions too. So you are welcome to submit your questions in the chat box, and we'll have an opportunity for an open floor later on towards the end of the webinar. And before we get started, if you are wondering where you can get the slides from the presentation, then that's easy to do. We invite you to contact HOTREC, who I'm sure will, of course, be happy to arrange that. So before we then just get started, I'd like then to hand straight over to Marine Thizon to give us a welcome. Marine, hello.
Yes, hello. Thanks, Peter. Good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for the very important topic. So for those who don't know, I'm Marine Thizon. I work as Public Affairs Manager at HOTREC. If you don't know HOTREC yet, HOTREC is the European association representing hotel, restaurants, bars, and cafes. So about half of the businesses we represent are restaurants, bars, and cafes. We have a long-standing partnership and collaboration with TOPOSOPHY. So Peter will be running the show today. We did a lot of research and work together, but this time we're trying to focus a bit more on the restaurant side of the industry. And of course, digitalization is happening. It's happening everywhere, whether we like it or not, actually. And we would like to put a bit the emphasis on that today. We know that some restaurants are far ahead. They're very pioneer, visionaire, and we'll see that very much with Michel, who we're really happy to welcome him in our panel today. And Ruiz also, who has been involved in a very interesting European project, Rest with EU, that we supported very much. And so we're very happy to have that topic today. The other thing that I wanted to say, because I'm cheeky and I like to be cheeky, is that the gender balance isn't really represented today in our panel. We did try, but the very interesting women that are very numerous in this industry were busy today and could not join us. But I promise we'll do better next time. I'll let you in good hands with Peter now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marine. And I can promise you we're the first people who are keen to see diverse representation in our industry and in our events. So absolutely, in future events, we'll certainly make sure that that is the case. I'm going to just now put the presentation up on the screen. Hopefully it is, you can see it. Yeah. Just check also if I move on to the next slide. That was Marine there. You can see that. Perfect. Okay. Well, as I said, I mentioned that our research team has been busy bringing together this collection of 10 trends, which we hope will give you a sense of how quickly digital tools and processes are shaping the day-to-day life of the food service industry. And I'm also very delighted to say that we are joined this morning by two panelists. I'm going to just give you a background on who our panelists are now, and then we'll come to a bit of a question and answer session with them later. I will first introduce Michel. Michel de Bloos has been working in the restaurant and retail industries for around 40 years and is the founder and CEO of a group operating more than 20 fast casual restaurants across Belgium, employing over 500 people. So you may, if you're in Belgium, you may be familiar with the Thai Cafe or the 10G restaurants. He's also on the board of the Brussels HORECA Federation and has a vast amount of strategic and practical experience in the food service sector, including finding practical tech solutions to common problems that are faced by businesses in the sector. So we're very delighted to have Michel with us this morning. And also Ruiz Rodríguez, who is a research analyst with Barrabés. Luis leads and participates in business and intelligence research projects. He's based in Madrid and is contributing to constantly identifying and contextualizing meaningful global trends and extracting guidelines about creating innovation policies and initiatives such as new business tools, new products, services, and relationship models. And of course, Luis and his company was involved recently in the Rest with EU project, which we're going to be talking about a bit more during the course of our panel discussion. So we'll come back to our panelists later, but I'd like to welcome them now. Thank you. So during the webinar, we're going to cover, as I mentioned, the top 10 digital trends that are shaping the future of food service, from menu engineering and digital menus as well, all sorts of innovations. We're going to explore how these trends are influencing consumer behavior and the operational efficiency. We're also going to talk a bit about the competitive landscape for restaurants and food service providers. And we're also going to be looking at this from the perspective of small and medium-sized enterprises, the benefits and the challenges for them that are coming with these trends. So we do hope that there's something for everyone in this webinar. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking in particular about the Rest with EU project. It's it's focusing on the digitalization of the European restaurant industry, and the aim is, as I said, has been to help SMEs to take the necessary steps to boost their digitalization, their productivity, and their performance as a business. And some of you here in our webinar may be familiar with that particular program. So let's jump straight into the 10 digital trends to watch in the world of restaurants and food service. And the first one is actually to talk about reviews. Now, we're going to cover a lot of different topics with these 10 trends today, but we're going to, so let's jump in and look at these reviews, because it's been interesting to see that. So if we look at Italy, and we know that Italians value a lot their gastronomic culture and they know their restaurants very well. It's been interesting, some recent research found from the Federazione Italiana di Pubblici and Esercizi from this year, found that 2 in 3 of Italian diners are checking online first before they go to a restaurant. And it's about 65% of Italian diners then are reading reviews before choosing their restaurant, and they are mostly going to TripAdvisor, Google, and The Fork when doing so. Looking at reviews from another perspective, it's been interesting to see that reviews in general are getting longer. Now, reviews have been getting longer over time, and we can see this graph going back to 2021, April 2021, and the lines that you can see in this graph are focusing on the word count as well as the rating. And in general, people have been giving more detailed customer feedback. It's also been interesting to see that reviews with lower ratings tend to be longer than those with higher ratings as well. What about negative reviews? Now, negative reviews do have an impact, because according to this study that was from Right Response AI, that 71% of respondents did admit that negative feedback has led them to decide against visiting a restaurant. So clearly reviews are having a really important impact there, if more people are reading them and more people are basing their decisions on them. There's also a bit of a danger around mid-score reviews, so somewhere between 0, 1, and 5. So this was a survey of more than 1,000 adult diners in the US, and it found that 57% of the respondents avoided a restaurant with ratings that were below between 3 and 3.5 stars. And interestingly, women did tend to be more sensitive to lower ratings than men. So that's reviews. I know that we'll come back a bit more to that later on. But I think it's also when we're talking about reviews that we talk about the impact of AI, and this is our second trend. The fact is the industry is now having to start dealing with what could be known as a fake review storm, and this is becoming an issue across many business sectors, including ours in travel and tourism. So from 2022 to 2023, Amazon actually reportedly saw a 4 times increase in the use of AI generated content in its published reviews, and this is something which is concerning platforms everywhere. TripAdvisor has also revealed that around 4% of its 30 million reviews were found to be or deemed to be fake or fraudulent in 2022. And the company said its detection process has picked up 72% of submissions before they were published on the platform. What has the EU response been? Well, HOTREC has recently welcomed this increasing focus on addressing fraudulent practices in digital platforms within the hospitality sector. This was highlighted recently by the EU Commissioner for Justice, he was responding to a European Parliament question, and he's highlighted and emphasized this urgent need for stronger measures in order to tackle fraud on platforms that can be vulnerable to misuse. And with AI, that risk there, I think, is only increasing. In Italy, the Federation of Public Establishments that I mentioned before has now relaunched its SOS Reviews Desk. The aim of this unit within the organization has been to address false reviews and challenge irregularities on online platforms, including issues with terms and conditions, handling complaints, and service suspensions as well. And so because these platforms are very well aware of this issue and the sort of threat of AI disrupting the review space, organizations such as Booking, Expedia, and TripAdvisor have formed and joined this coalition for trusted reviews. It launched just last month, and the new website has shown best practices for maintaining trusted online reviews, which you can see here. So clearly it's concerning the platforms, and they are starting to take action. Moving on to our third trend, and it's about the many different channels that restaurants use and the many different audiences that they're now seeking to appeal to. And of course, if you think, let's say 20, 30 years ago, there's no comparison these days between the type of marketing presence that a restaurant has today but compared to what it had before. So consumers are engaging with restaurant in the end for many different reasons. There are 2 broad reasons which we've identified. First of all, of course, to inspire new and returning customers with enticing offers and promotions, so to sort of form that customer loyalty. And then the second is to provide more practical, tailored information that can meet the needs of certain specific audiences. So, for example, dietary preferences or guest reviews. And we can see some just research below there that looked at the type of information that diners hoped would be made available in order to make their restaurant experience more enjoyable. Also, when we're looking at different age groups, there's different needs there as well. Now, different content in the end, it shouldn't be so siloed. And it's really important for restaurants increasingly to make sure that their content is shared across multiple channels and not just available in one place in order to cater to the varying preferences of different age groups across different channels as well. The idea of this, of course, is to create a bit more of a combined effect where the overall amount of content across different channels helps to strengthen the restaurant's messaging and its overall impact. And we can see here a bit of a selection of restaurant, preferred communication channels by generation there as well. So pretty email across all of the older generations there, except Gen Zs, which prefer text. And I assume that also, of course, includes things like WhatsApp and other instant messaging. Moving on to our fourth trend then. And this is about we're staying in the area of marketing and content, and we're looking at boosting restaurant visibility then through social media. Now, Instagram has long been important in the restaurant space, but TikTok is certainly on the rise. Looking at France, nearly half of French diners in a recent study from this year, that's around about 45% of diners, are regularly exploring chefs' recipes on social media. And this figure actually is increased among younger audiences as well, so rising to 67% among those who are aged 35 and under. At the same time, 2 in 5 diners, that's 42%, are following social media accounts that recommend restaurants. And this is, again, higher among younger audiences as well. So there's definitely an appetite for content out there, just seen from France in particular. Now, Instagram is the current leader. If we look at US diners who are using social media to discover new restaurants, Instagram is definitely the most popular platform overall, but as you can see, there's relatively small differences there. Obviously, Facebook and YouTube are very important as well. And there was a slight difference between the way that men and women saw this. And for men, the top choices were Instagram and YouTube, it seems, as well. This was from DoorDash. Now, but as I mentioned, TikTok is definitely rising, becoming more important. So for Generation Z, TikTok is taking the top spot. As I said, millennials prefer Instagram, followed by YouTube, and women are ranking TikTok ahead of Instagram as their go-to platform for exploring restaurants and dining experiences. So TikTok we know it's exerting a huge influence across a range of industries, and that's definitely now the case in the restaurant sector too. Let's move on and change the subject now slightly with our fifth trend. And we're going to talk a little bit more then about the AI journey and the fact that AI, artificial intelligence is becoming widely used across a wide range of industries. So we wanted to have a bit of a look at, in general, let's look at what the research is saying about how restaurants are employing this technology. The first is that in general, especially if we're looking at, and then the US is often a bit of a sign about how things may change on this side of the Atlantic over time. And in general, over half of restaurant decision makers in a recent survey were actively exploring ways to enhance their business using AI. And that was a 7% increase from those that were using this last year. So this was looking at, the study was looking about what sort of changes are anticipated, and because you can see that the second biggest one was artificial intelligence there. Now, on the whole, restaurant decision makers are quite balanced in their views about how AI can effectively be implemented in their operations. Optimizing menu performance and providing personalized recommendations are the top priorities there, or the top use cases that were perceived in this study. But consumers are also increasingly, whether we're not sure if they're comfortable with it, but they're certainly expecting a greater use of AI, because we look at French diners here, this was from a study in February this year, a significant 71% of French diners believe that artificial intelligence will see widespread deployment in the restaurant industry within the next 2 years. And more than a quarter already think that AI is already being used in the sector anyway. Of course, increasingly use of POS systems and all sorts of other systems, meaning that it's becoming much more easy to incorporate. I mentioned before about personalized recommendations and the use of AI. And it's interesting to see that especially younger and solo diners in particular value personalized recommendations. And this is our sixth trend. So according to, this was data from MasterCard, more than 80% of consumers under the age of 40 do now consider personalized recommendations to be important to their digital ordering experience. And I guess it's natural if we expect digital recommendations and personalized recommendations in other areas and other times that we're ordering online and ordering in person. But this tailored experience can take on any form. For example, personalized push notifications about reservations and special offers and things like that as well. It's also been very interesting to see that younger diners then are also increasingly choosing to dine alone. Now, there's possibly different reasons for this. We hear about loneliness among young people, so there may be a bit of a link there, but also perhaps around changing lifestyles, mixed work and leisure patterns as well among younger audiences. Of course, hybrid working and things like that may be feeding into this trend. So in the UK, solo dining grew by 14% in the past year. And this trend has been driven by Gen Zs and millennials. And this was from a study by Open Table from this year, generally looking to indulge in some sort of me time. What is interesting, though, for the restaurant sector is that solo diners do tend to spend more, about 32% more per person than other diners as well. Now, moving on to our seventh trend, and we're talking a bit more now about automation. In particular for operational efficiency, and this is across a wide range of areas. Now, automation through digital enablement, so digital ordering options and investments in technology are definitely driving enablement in US restaurants. It's helping to automate specific processes to enhance efficiency and reduce costs. And it's interesting to see that more than quick service or fast casual restaurants, it's actually the full service restaurants that are among the leaders in this transition. And this is according to a study by KPMG earlier this year. As I mentioned, menu optimization, then, that is also helping to boost performance in other areas of the business. So according to a survey of about 319 people, decision makers in the restaurant industry, and this was from a range of restaurant types, so quick service, fast casual, and full service. That menu optimization is definitely fundamental to achieving other goals. So, for example, to improving customer satisfaction and also to improving operating margins as well. But of course, it has to be based on data. And there are multiple ways and multiple sources of data that restaurants are using in order to help boost their menu optimization much further. That can include such as historic patterns in sales performance, as we can see from the data here, looking at historic patterns in customer behavior, also looking at things like loyalty and gathering information from restaurant managers as well, and facilitating customer surveys too. So there's a range of different data points that they're bringing into this, and I think this is an area which is only going to become more important. Now, let's move on to the very important topic of sustainability. And this is also, of course, linked to the issue of business efficiency and food waste. This is definitely rising up the political agenda, and it's been very welcome to see that just last week, the European Week of Waste Reduction focused on food waste management solutions. And as part of these activities this year, there were two apps that were showcased that are designed to help restaurants tackle food waste across various European countries. The first of these apps, I'm sure you will have heard of it, Too Good To Go, which was founded in Copenhagen in 2016. So within just 8 years, it's grown to 100 million registered users. It's got 170,000 active business partners in 19 countries in Europe and North America. And according to the company, they have helped to save over 350 million meals from being wasted through their various different formats of helping to connect consumers with food, of surplus food from supermarkets and restaurants and things as well. There's another app. This is one that's local more to Spain, Encantado de Comerte. It's a Spanish mobile app which is designed to combat food waste, and it's also connecting consumers with local businesses, which is offering unsold food at reduced prices, particularly from bakeries, restaurants, and grocery stores, which is good to see as well. And that was founded just in 2018. Now we're moving towards the end of our trends. We've got the 9th trend here, which is about the evolving impact of food delivery platforms in Europe. We know that this is a sector which has opened up a market for restaurants, but also continues to provide quite a lot of disruption and controversy in the space as well. So among 7 platforms, 5 have operations in more than 10 countries in Europe. So this was from a working paper. And there's quite a lot of analysis going into the very quickly evolving space with these. We can see the letters there on the map that are showing the presence of these major platforms across different European countries. But we can see that some of them dominate in particular in certain specific countries. Just to take an overview of those major platforms in Europe, and you can see in the column on the left there, in terms of their country presence and their key markets, obviously Bolt Food, Deliveroo, Foodora, Glovo, Just Eat, Uber Eats, and Volt. We've done a bit of an analysis to sort of map some of the major players in this sector as well. But as you can see, most of them are really quite recent innovations. Now, Uber Eats in particular has now come into profitability. It recorded a positive earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization of $1.5 billion. So that's only the second year of profitability since its inception, and this is reflecting its improved operational efficiency. And it's been interesting to see, as we can see here, that Deliveroo and Just Eat have also followed a similar trajectory in their financial performance. And I'm sure people from the restaurant sector here have probably got strong opinions about this. However, and often these strong opinions come because they're quite a controversial sector. The European Commission in July this year launched a formal antitrust investigation in order to determine whether Delivery Hero and Glovo were violating EU competition rules by engaging in cartel activities, as they called it, within the European Economic Area. And this was around issues such as exchanging commercially sensitive information, including details on pricing, commercial strategies, capacity costs, and product characteristics as well. And obviously, the EU Commission continues to look at this space. Ranking criteria as well is another controversial issue. The European Commission has been aware of the business's concerns about the transparency of certain platforms' activities, particularly regarding how algorithms and ranking parameters are complying with Article 5 of the P2B regulation. So in general, platforms should provide a list of the main parameters that determine their ranking and the reasons for the relative importance of those parameters compared to others. And moving on to our final trend then, we want to just take a brief look at the home restaurant sector, which of course was affected quite a lot by COVID. Quite a lot by COVID, but is definitely now shaping up again and seeing growth. In general, the market space here is made up of local leaders as well as continental giants. Before I just get into that, I wanted to highlight a study that we did in collaboration with HOTREC back in 2018. It was actually the world's first comprehensive guide to the meal sharing and home restaurant sector, and it included an industry mapping and policy recommendations. Of course, some things have changed in the market since then, but there's also a lot of very valid information and important policy questions that are raised in that report. And of course, you're welcome to download that from HOTREC. During what we did during there, I just wanted to highlight the fact that there's, in this space, it incorporates actually a variety of initiatives. So meal sharing can mean many different things, whether that is along the lines of food waste management, food swaps, and social networking. There's the tourism side to it as well. What we have noticed since COVID is that the sector has undergone significant consolidation, while the home restaurant segment has been following a recovery pattern that's a bit more aligned to the wider travel and tourism industry. So as tourism demand has come back, then so has demand for this type of experience. Now, across the world, there are some very big platforms in this space. Eat With is probably one of the most famous there, as well as Traveling Spoon and Cesarine, Tasty Talks as well. And we've just put the definition there at the bottom about what we mean by home restaurants. But at the same time, we must remember that these type of experiences, so home restaurants offerings and related activities, are also available across many other experience-focused platforms. So if we think about Airbnb experiences with locals, Get Your Guide, Viator, and Amusement as well. So this is a very rapidly evolving and fragmented space. And I think that highlights the need for continual monitoring and assessing the scale and the need for regulation in this space as well. And I know that that's something which HOTREC has been following very closely as well. And just to start wrapping up then, in Italy, the Italian Federation of Public Establishments has been looking at this sector and has put safety of consumers at the heart of this issue. And this was just 2 weeks ago. It reaffirmed its stance on home restaurants, and it really highlighted the fact that in order to avoid abuse and ensure that service is aligned with the high standards of Italian catering, that safety and consumer safety, food safety, etc., must be at the heart of what is happening in this space. So we've covered the 10 trends. I hope you found them useful. And with that in mind, I would now like to welcome back our panelists here to just talk about some of their impressions of what they've seen there, some of their own personal experience in this space. And I have a series of questions which I'd like to ask as well. And actually, I'd like to come first of all to Ruiz. Hello, Ruiz. Buenos dias.
Hi, Peter. Thank you for having me here.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And I wanted to just actually start by focusing a little bit more on the Rest with EU project and the lessons that you've taken from that project. I'm just interested to understand some of those challenges that you think restaurants are facing in adapting to digitalization and how they could be overcome.
Okay, well, Rest with You project was a long project with different phases. We started by doing a research phase, quite comprehensive, to understand properly the needs of the industry, right? But from that research phase, we talk, we made surveys, we made a lot of interviews, workshops with restaurants, experts, just to get the deep into the knowledge, right? Well, but the first reflection about digital challenges comes to my mind from a very transversal point of view. I mean, when we talk about digital tools, there's a concept that is always floating in the air, which is digital transformation. I don't like it very much because it put the focus on the wrong side of the equation. It put the focus on digital, and digital, they are only tools. And in many projects in different industries that I've been working on regarding this issue, the main mistake that they made were that they confused digital tools as the goal of the process. And they are only tools that should serve to a purpose. So if we need to
and it should be genuinely useful, indeed. Yeah. So
yes.
Practical and
useful. So the challenges in our restaurants, given the social experience they represent, for example, is precisely how can we improve the experience of the users? How can we use digital tools for that? So we need to understand that very, very well. In terms of structural issues that the restaurant industry should face, there are some issues like the lack of skills and qualified personnel to work with these tools, to use these tools in order to improve their experience, the operations, etc. The cost of the tools, and a very important issue is the lack of financing channels to promote innovation. That not always are well thought to that point. And regarding the digital platforms, there's a big issue there. Probably restaurants are just, let's say, victims, but the regulation of technology platforms and digital platforms. We can talk a little bit more later about this, but that's a huge issue in Europe right now.
Definitely, that came through in the trends as well. Thank you very much, Luis. And so I'd like to turn to Michel and actually just, I know, Michel, as I mentioned, you have been working in the restaurant sector now for several decades. And I think over that time, we've seen huge changes, huge transformation, and obviously a much bigger presence of digital technology. So I just wondered maybe if you could share with us some of your reflections on how technology has changed the game for restaurateurs over the years that you've been working in the sector.
Well, thank you, Peter, and hello to everybody. Well, at least I share with Luis this first reflection that digital tools are just tools. So you always have to remember that behind the tools, there must be a solution to a problem. And that's what actually I've seen changing in the industry since probably 30 years or so. Digitalization probably came first with the POS system, which was already a source of data in the old times. The old cash registers used to have already some kind of data reports and things like that. And all these things were, of course, developed and became more familiar and more usable through the use of programs, applications like Excel in the beginning, and some more dedicated things later on. But now, I can only say about this particular point, that as you showed in your presentation, Peter, there is a greater and a more intense use of data. While this is not a scoop in the food industry, it's probably in every industry, every field. But in the industry that we're talking about, we try to focus on what the customer wants, what the customer is expecting from us, what kind of experience they're expecting. And this is particular to each concept or each kind of restaurant.
Yeah.
Fast casual or fast food or casual dining, it's probably different. The kind of data that you're looking for are different. So, in other words, and to get back to this point, digital tools are tools. So the more difficult is probably to ask the question. What is the question that you're looking for an answer? And of course, digital is helping for that, but the question is the important point.
Of course, and actually, I'd like to come back in briefly with you in a few moments, Michel, to talk about some of those practical applications. Thank you. And just to come back to Ruiz, then, this digital pathway tool then was developed as part of the Rest With You projects, and I'm just interested to understand how it assists small and medium-sized restaurants in adopting new technologies while maintaining that efficiency.
Yeah, in fact, building on what Michel just said, the digital pathway tool is a tool that helps you to frame the question, to make you the question why or what is the digital tools for, right? So the digital pathway tool, it's we can call it a summary of the whole project we carry out. Everything we learned in the research phase, everything we learned mapping all the solutions we found in startups to help our restaurants, and all we learn from carrying out pilots that we match a restaurant with a digital solution, and we help them to carry a pilot for the restaurant to implement the startup solution. All of that is concentrated and summarized on the digital pathway tool. The digital pathway tool basically is a survey that helps you to identify your digitization level and the main challenges you have given that level. And those challenges are transformed in what we have called pathways. We identified 10 pathways. One is related, for example, with a digital presence and connecting with diners. Another one is facilitating booking, easy reservation management, intelligent warehouse, improving table services, business insights, traceability and cleanliness, digital restaurant tools in terms of infrastructure, digital infrastructure, delivery, takeaway, maximizing employee potential, and mitigating food waste. Those are the 10 pathways. For each pathway, what you get is why should you solving or trying to improve that with digital tools, and the steps you need to follow to get that implemented.
And I'm sure this has been produced then in many different languages for users across the EU to be able to.
I think it's basically in English. I'm not sure if it's translated, to be honest.
But it's been written in a way that's very quick and practical to use.
Yes, because it's a very simple survey, and we developed an algorithm just to give the proper answers. And then you have, for each pathway, you have like a document also from 60 to 20 pages explaining in very detail each step you should give.
Okay, yeah, very good, very useful to know. Thank you for that. Okay, so just Michel, I'd like to just come back and talk a little bit more. I mentioned food delivery platforms earlier, and I'm curious about the relationship that your company has with them. And we know that, of course, there have been quite controversial. There are many challenges associated for restaurants they see as having high commissions and sometimes market dominance. So just curious to understand a little bit more about how your company has navigated those challenges.
Peter, the first thing I'd like to say is that our answer, which is not probably usable for anyone, but our answer was to establish our own system of delivery. So we are not fully dependent of the platforms. And actually, this, of course, gives us a great way to negotiate with them. Since we represent in our little market a good offer, they want to have us, but we don't need them absolutely. So, of course, this was a more comfortable way to talk with them. Now, talking about this kind of negotiation, the first problem that I can say as experience is that people are changing all the time in these platforms. You have a contact with someone, 3 months later he's gone. The structure has changed, and they don't answer the questions that you asked 3 months before. So it's quite difficult. The second problem that I see is that communicating with them is more or less the same as the first point, is very difficult also for practical, operational problems. For menus, when we communicate the menus, sometimes they're not really reacting quick enough. So they have old menus, old items, difficult to make them change, and so and so. So actually working with platforms is not really nice. Then the third point that I'd like to mention is the unloyal concurrence. Sorry, I don't remember the name.
The unfair competition, I think.
Unfair competition, sorry, thank you. Because they use drivers and delivery guys with absolutely no rights and no protection. And this is really unfair. Probably for them, the cost of one delivery is half or less than half of what it costs to, us, for instance, to people following the rules with a good contracts and good insurance and so and so. And this is a point that the Commission has addressed several times, and we've seen recently in Belgium that Uber Eats has lost some actions, and their answer was to fire the guys that got a good contract with them. So finally, this came to nothing. This is a real problem.
Yeah, I can see. And interesting that you highlight about the challenge of maintaining relationships as well, and about the communication, because particularly if they're advertising older products or things that you've changed on the menu, then of course that can have an outcome for the customer's expectation and their experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I saw that we had a question that came in about AI, which is great because we're going to come onto that topic in a second. And before we do, I just wanted to turn to Ruiz and just also ask then about some of the trends which you think have had the greatest impact on the restaurant sector since the pandemic. Maybe which areas have seen slower progress for example, in tech adoption.
The most I think that the pandemic let us saw glimpses of the digital world, and not always the digital world is good. So the balancing influence and the impact of on-demand delivery on restaurants, for me, is part of the future of this industry. It's quite obvious. In 2021, the food delivery transactions, for example, in UK increased to 171%. In US, 58%. In Canada, 86%. So that's a huge. Obviously, things. I wouldn't say that they come back to normal, but some part yes, but they are still there. And given the particular characteristics of the digital tools, and particularly the platforms, such as the sunk cost, the network effects, this kind of platforms tend to monopolies or oligopolies, let's say that. So regulation here is absolutely key. As Michel said, unfair competition, they can charge you wherever they want. Well, I think that the European Commission is moving in other industries, is already moving with the Digital Service Act, Digital Markets Act, the AA Act is still there. So I think that we are going to see movements there for sure. Another key digital trend for me is automation for operational efficiency. In fact, 3 of the challenges we identified on the project were focused specifically into that. Facilitating booking, intelligent warehouse, improving table services. And for me, there is another one that's about reviews. And particularly, I think that we are all talking now about disinformation.
Yeah.
Trust is one of the fights that we are going to have in the digital world in the next years.
It's related to the second trend, which I mentioned in my presentation.
Artificial intelligence is going to be what can you trust? What's human? What's not? In our review,
very useful, and actually just brings us very helpfully onto the topic of artificial intelligence, because you raise the serious challenges that it's posing for the food service industry. I also wanted to just briefly just have many helpful and practical applications as well. And with that in mind, I know that introducing AI technology into business operations can often be seen as quite complex and costly process for restaurants. And Michel, I wondered maybe if you could share with us any AI-based solutions that you've actually found quite easy or more cost-effective to implement in your business.
Well, yes, we've been covering this question before. Actually, AI and all AI technologies are coming into every part of digitalization. Any kind of question that we have and looking for an answer, now we are challenged by AI. There is always a point where it comes up that why don't we ask ChatGPT to see what the answer might be? And that happens in communication, making videos, short videos, TikTok-style videos, photography, well, so many things. practically, we have been using also AI for helping in coding. We decided to become independent of all kind of service for monitoring the cold rooms and the cold storage. And for this application, we used the AI to help us in making the right code for this little application. This was a very easy little thing. It took, so of course we started with, the good question. It's again the same kind of problem that we mentioned very earlier. If you have a good question, you get the good answer. And particularly in coding, if you can formulate a question that is clear and relate to the right context, you get incredibly quickly, almost instantly, a good answer. Then it's trial and error, and after a few times, you get a good solution. So AI is really helpful, but it needs to be used with skilled people. I don't mean that it's only for experts, but anyone can use it, but you have to formulate the right question.
Certainly, yeah. So I understand you used it in a very practical, operational way in monitoring the effectiveness or any possible faults in the cold storage, as you mentioned. And I think we also had a question just earlier about administration as well. And I understand that this is an area that you've also been focusing on the business to try and make it as efficient as possible. Maybe I just wondered if you could talk about it from an administration point of view in the business as well.
What you mean by administration?
Managing the business, the overall sort of operations, the sort of back office, let's say, of the company.
Well, again, we try to get the right tools, and I can say, as probably a result of that we are about 500 people in the company, and we have only about 6 managing people. And we can only do that because everything that we do in terms of planning, managing the people, all the contracts, all these things, everything is digital.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we use AI when we can. But again, basically, the operation is still the same. The people are eating food with, so I mean, the beginning of the story is the same as many years ago. When we started the company, we didn't have AI, we have just only a few digital tools. And what we need is to find tools to help. And this is exactly what Luis said in the beginning. You need to get the good idea of what you are looking for. Tools are not difficult, actually, to construct, but they're difficult to make. It's difficult to make the definition of what kind of answer you are looking.
Understood. Yeah, and also. Luis. Yeah.
Oh, regarding AI, if I may, just one quick comment. I think that sometimes before running, you need to learn to walk. Mm-hmm. And in AI, I think we are crawling right now. And before jumping into tools and try to implement them, I think it's the most valuable thing you can do regarding AI, because I know it's a hot topic, and I see in many companies that you enter in the webpage, we use AI. Then we start to look and they don't use it at all. They just put it there. But what you should think, in my opinion, is, okay, I do things in this way. You analyze your processes. You find use cases where you can see that some AI tools can help you, and that gives you a benefit for implementing. And then you compare to the cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
exactly.
Please think before start running.
Exactly. To complement, you have to be able to ask yourself the question before you ask the AI tool. Otherwise, you just waste your time.
Yeah, before jumping in. Yeah, that's very useful advice. Thank you very much. I just wanted to check if there's any more questions from the audience that they wanted to pose to our panelists. Please just pop your question in the chat box. Maybe while we do, I just wanted to Michel just asked to come back to a question that I had asked Luis, and it was actually this one, which was about just trends, not necessarily digital trends, but just general changes in behavior you've maybe noticed among consumers since the pandemic in terms of consumer behavior across the business. I just wondered if there's any major trends that you've noticed.
Which trend have had the greatest impact?
Maybe around reviews or some of the marketing on the marketing side or the things?
Well, I would say, Peter, that for us, what was the greatest impact was for the use of reusable packaging. It's not directly related with digital, but in fact, yes. Because we decided to use reusable packaging, so we banned all single-use plastic boxes. But it was really possible and easy to do because it was included in the POS system. All the calculation of what kind of packaging to use, what amount to charge as a deposit to the customer, all these things were completely integrated into the POS system. And so this had a great impact on our activity in general. Yes,
and it's an area that you've been working on for some time.
About our experience, huh? It's probably the trend that we've seen the greatest impact.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, thank you very much for that. I've been looking at I've also noticed we have some comments and questions come in. One was from Simone, which was about personal recommendations, I think from the trends number 6. I think in general, people, especially younger consumers, are increasingly used to having more of a conversation with the brands and the companies that they're buying from. And that includes now restaurants. And I think there's a greater willingness and openness to receive things like personalized special offers, for example, new menu suggestions, and of course all of this can be adapted based on AI as well. Of course, we're happy to look further into the studies there. And there was a very interesting question also from someone who's anonymous, but I'm wondering if any of the panelists have an opinion. It's just around why reviews might be getting longer. It's a good question because people's attention span is getting shorter when they're looking at TikTok videos for 10 seconds, etc. Perhaps it's because people are becoming more used to reviews in general, and it's something much more commonly used these days. I don't know. I just wondered if any of our panelists have an opinion on this topic. Yeah.
Well, yes, I believe that longer reviews is probably good news. Because
more detail.
Yeah, more detailed. It means that people are looking in detail of what the restaurant has to offer, and this is probably the beginning of a sort of an answer to fake news. I guess that by having a longer review, you probably get into more reality. Well, maybe I'm very optimistic about this. We've been talking about AI, and AI can probably do anything in terms of longer reviews as well. But I believe it's good that the people try to have more detail. Yes.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe they are writing with ChatGPT.
Maybe they're writing with ChatGPT.
Just a joke.
It's true. If they have a longer review, it's more likely to get a bit more detail that's able to help you understand if it's right or it's authentic or not. Just finally, we have one more question because I know we're coming to the end now. Just one more question. It's about what strategies do you have for recommending, what strategies do you recommend for training staff to effectively integrate and use new tools? Because of course it's this is essential for their practical application. And as Michel mentioned, you need people who are really experienced and not amateur in this area. So I just wondered about, in your experience, how have you helped to spread this knowledge a bit more evenly throughout the company, so that it doesn't just stay with the tech people at the top?
Well, my strategy has always been to keep it simple and stupid. You cannot expect people to use the technology if it's too difficult.
Yeah.
The learning curve is more than a few minutes, you're out. They're using something else. So everything we do, the user interface is always the most important part of it. The way the people interact with the technology is the point. The technology behind, we don't care about it. It must be efficient, must be quick, and must give the good answer to the question that you have. But the point is that it, first of all, must be simple.
Yeah, that's an excellent reflection. Thank you, Michel. Luis, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I like to an approach based on the behaviors. I mean, it's not only about how we use technology, but how our habits change when we are working. So habits to behave in a different way with technology. It's key to use effectively the technology. All habits die hard. People tend to keep doing the same thing in the same way all the time. Change creates resistance in people. But if you work in habits, in a habits approach to change that, I think is quite useful.
Yeah, very useful. Thank you very much. Well, I'm aware that we have now come to the end of our hour, and we will have to wrap things up. But I'm extremely grateful to you both, Michel and Luis. We're grateful for everybody joining us. Just to wrap up, I just wanted to pass briefly back to Marine, just to say any closing words from HOTREC's side.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. I just wanted to say two quick things. One thing is we've seen this morning the potential of the digital tools. But what we really need now, we need to make sure that the smaller businesses, and it's 90% of the business we represent, which are SMEs and micro enterprises, on average 4 to 5 employees in the restaurant sector, we really need to make sure that they can benefit from all these tools. This means to improve the efficiency of the business, boost their profitability, also improve their sustainable practices. So there are different ways of doing that. And I know we have someone from the European Commission on the call. We also need to work with the Commission and to find ways to find fundings to support the smaller businesses. And the last thing I wanted to say is that dining solo is my dream. If I could only make it, I would, definitely. So I will keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, on that note, we'll close up here and wish everybody a very good day. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.